Hello students. Today we are going to continue with our second chapter of history of class 8, that is from trade to territory. In the first video we studied about how East India Company came to India, how it started its trade in Bengal, and how this trade led to various battles like the Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. We also studied about how the company officials became Nawabs. Now, we will study about how the company rule expanded. Now, talking about the company rule expansion, if we analyze the process of annexation of Indian states by the East Indian Company from 1757 to 1857, certain key aspects emerge. The company rarely launched a direct military attack on an unknown territory. Instead, it used a variety of political, economic, and diplomatic methods to extend its influence before annexing an Indian kingdom. After the Battle of Buxar, which occurred in 1764, the company appointed residents in Indian states. They were political or commercial agents, and their job was to serve and further the interests of the company. Through the residents, the company officials began interfering in the internal affairs of Indian states. They tried to decide who was to be the successor to the throne and who was to be appointed in administrative posts. Sometimes the company forced the states into a subsidiary alliance. According to the terms of this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces. They were to be protected by the company, but had to pay for the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the Indian rulers failed to make the payment, then part of their territory was taken away as penalty. Now, for example, Richard Wellesley was a governor general from 1798 to 1805. The Nawab of Awadh was forced to give over half of his territory to the company in 1801 as he failed to pay for the subsidiary forces. Hyderabad was also forced to cede territories on similar grounds. The company resorted to direct military confrontation when it saw a threat to its political or economic interests. This can be illustrated with the case of the southern Indian state of Mysore. Mysore had grown in strength under the leadership of powerful rulers like Hyder Ali, who ruled from 1761 to 1782, and his famous son Tipu Sultan, who ruled from 1782 to 1799. Mysore controlled the profitable trade of the Malabar coast, where the company purchased pepper and cardamom. In 1785, Tipu Sultan stopped the export of sandalwood, pepper, and cardamom through the ports of his kingdom and disallowed local merchants from trading with the company. He also established a close relationship with the French in India and modernized his army with their help. The British became very furious. They saw Hyder and Tipu as ambitious, arrogant, and dangerous rulers who had to be controlled and crushed. Four wars were fought with Mysore. First in 1767 to 1769, the second between 1780 to 1784, third from 1790 to 1792, and the last one in 1799. Only in the last, the Battle of Seringapatam, did the company ultimately win a victory. Tipu Sultan was killed defending his capital, Seringapatam. Mysore was placed under the former ruling dynasty of the Vodayars, and a subsidiary alliance was imposed on the state. Now, after defeating Tipu Sultan in Seringapatam, the company had its eye on the Marathas. The company from the late 18th century was planning to destroy the Maratha power. The Third Battle of Panipat in 1761, the Marathas were defeated and their dream of ruling from Delhi was shattered. They were divided into many states under different chiefs, which were called Sardars, belonging to dynasties such as the Scindias, the Holkars, the Gaikwads, and the Bhosles. These chiefs were held together under a Peshwa. Peshwa was the principal minister who became its effective military and administrative head based in Pune. Marathas were indulged in a series of wars. The first war ended in 1782 with the Treaty of Salbai, though there was no clear victor. The Second Anglo-Maratha War, which took place between 1803 to 1805, was fought on different fronts, resulting in the British gaining Orissa and the territories north of the Yamuna River, including Agra and Delhi. Finally, the Third Anglo-Maratha War of 1817, which continued till 1819, crushed Maratha power. Now let's study our next topic, that is the claim to paramountcy. Now paramountcy was a new policy which was initiated under Lord Hastings, who was the Governor General from 1813 to 1823. The company claimed that its power was greater than that of Indian states. In the late 1830s, the East India Company became worried about Russia. It imagined that Russia might expand across Asia and enter India from northwest. The company fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan between 1838 and 1842 and established indirect company rule there. Punjab was annexed in 1849 after two prolonged wars. Now coming over to our next major topic, that is the doctrine of lapse. Now under this doctrine of lapse, Lord Dalhousie played a very shrewd game. This doctrine of lapse was brought by Lord Dalhousie only, who was the Governor General from 1848 to 1856, and he gave the final wave of annexation in India by the British Empire. Now, the doctrine of lapse was a policy which declared that if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, that means the male successor, then his kingdom would lapse, that is, become part of company territory. In 1856, the company took over Awadh. Similarly, the kingdom of Satara, Sambalpur, Udaipur, Nagpur, and Jhansi were also taken over by the British Empire. Because of this humiliating way of annexing the kingdom, the people of Awadh and the Nawab of Awadh, they were very enraged, and later on in the revolt of 1857 the people of Awadh joined the great revolt in a huge amount. They were very angry the way their Nawab was deposed. Now if we talk about setting up of a new administration, Warren Hastings, who was the Governor General from 1773 to 1785, played a significant role in the expansion of company power. During his time, the company had acquired power in Bengal, Bombay, and Madras. British territories were broadly divided into administrative units called the presidencies. There were three presidencies: Bengal, Madras, and Bombay. Each was ruled by a governor. From 1772, a new system of justice was established. According to the new system, each district needed to have two courts: a criminal court, which was known as Faujdari Adalat, and a civil court, which was known as Diwani Adalat. Now, the Brahman Pandits have different interpretations of local laws based on different schools of the Dharma Shastra. To bring uniformity in 1775, 11 Pandits were asked to compile a digest of Hindu laws. By 1778, a code of Muslim laws was also compiled for the benefit of European judges. Under the Regulating Act of 1773, a new Supreme Court was established, while a Court of Appeal, the Sadar Nizamat Adalat, was also set up at Calcutta. The collector was the principal figure in an Indian district. His job was to collect revenue and taxes and maintain law and order in his district with the help of judges, police officers, and darogas. In India, colonial rule brought some new ideas of administration and reform. The Mughal army, composed of cavalry and infantry, the army of the Mughal was dominated by cavalry. Now, cavalry are the sawars, the trained soldiers on horseback, while infantry is the pedal soldiers, or that is the foot soldiers. In the 18th century, changes occurred when Mughal successors states like Awadh and Benares started recruiting peasants into their armies and training them as professional soldiers. The East India Company adopted the same method, which came to be known as Sepoy army, from the which was derived from the Indian word Sipahi, meaning soldiers. In the early 19th century, the British began to develop a uniform military culture. Soldiers were subjected to European style training, drill, and discipline that regulated their life far more than before. Thus, the East India Company was transformed from a trading company to a territorial colonial power. In the early 19th century, new steam technology arrived. By 1857, the company came to exercise direct rule over above 63% of the territory and 78% of the population of the Indian subcontinent. Combined with its indirect influence on the remaining territory and population of the country, the East India Company had virtually the whole of India under its control. So students, that's it for this chapter. Study the chapter thoroughly, and if you find any kind of problem, do ask the question in the comment section below the video. स्टूडेंट्स, अगर आपको किसी भी तरह के इस चैप्टर में दिक्कत आती है तो अपने क्वेश्चंस कमेंट सेक्शन में वीडियो के नीचे मेंशन कर सकते हैं. आई विल आंसर दोज क्वेश्चंस. थैंक यू.